All right, Dr. Ray, it is 9 o'clock p.m. in Saudi, and I think it's time to get started, rocking and rolling.
Yeah, we're ready to go. Good evening. Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Ray Lindley. I'm the Executive Director of Array Global Educational Services. We're so pleased that you're with us today. And as you heard last week, we had over 2,000 people registered for the time, and we have maybe 100 or so more than that today. So I do hope that more than anything, this is meeting the needs of you all right now at this special time in our world because of all of the problems with the closing of schools or opening of schools, or teachers or not teachers wearing masks and not wearing masks, and there are just so many complicated things. So we have designed these workshops to really hit at the key points that we think will hopefully help you in the opening of your school or the delay of your school, because we have a very, very heavy responsibility to give the best to those students who come across our pathways. And they come to you, most of you are their first contact in the educational setting. And we want to be sure that we have given you the best help that we can. Last week we had Dr. Salam Noor, and Dr. Noor talked about the whole idea of how the system has to be coordinated together. And next week, I'll skip over today for now. Next week we have Dr. Drew Hines, who will be talking about your technology use and technology needs during this pandemic. The important thing about technology is that we're having to use it in a new, more complete way than maybe we're used to. So that will be the emphasis next week. And the fourth Saturday, which will be 2 weeks from today, we're going to be talking about how to really continue the whole concept of school culture when we're here and there and not here and not there, and we're online and not online, and sometimes you're here and sometimes you're there. So 2 weeks from today, that will be the fourth workshop and the final offer that we will do at this time. I should mention to you all that since we have received such outstanding responses from you and the people who have attended the workshops, Dr. Frankham and I have decided we're going to do one a month for September, October, November, and December. And we will announce those, and we'll try to present topics that are of concern to you in your school. So it would help us a lot if you would maybe drop us a note and say, would you talk about, and then give us some idea of something that would really help you. Because as we said last week, the journey is very important, and the top of the pyramid is the student, and everything we do has to work with the student. To improve the student. So with us today, I now see George Maklavadze, who is with us now. I see him, we were waiting for him, and he is here, and he will be speaking in just a little bit over some curriculum issues. So on the screen now, you will see, of course, Dr. Jacob Frankham, who is the Associate Director, and who is the real person who puts all this together and makes it work and so forth. And then at least on my computer, on my left or my right, is Dr. Bob Sanchez and his wife, Dr. Laurie Sanchez, and they will be presenting the subject today. It's all about the curriculum. We can't deny that. And so today is all about using the curriculum. I'll have more to say when we're introducing Dr. Bob and Dr. Laurie. But let me turn it over to Dr. Jake Frankham, who's the Associate Director, and he has a few announcements and some information which hopefully will be helpful before we start the work with Dr. Bob and Dr. Laurie.
Thanks, Dr. Ray. It's a pleasure to be with you. I really wish that we could be together, all together in a room together and working together and interacting together, but this is the next best thing because of this pandemic. I sure hope and wish and pray that everyone is healthy, everyone is well, and as you're getting ready for this school year, that everything is going well with your planning and things are working out with each one of your schools. We wanted to remind everyone about our annual worldwide conference that's going to be taking place in Switzerland in March 3rd through the 5th. It would be great to have a lot of people there and see the beautiful place of Switzerland and talk about our favorite thing, education. Also, we're going to be starting our Olympiads on October 10th. There's going to be some more information about that. And this is all going to be remote, these Olympiads. We're really excited to be able to provide that. Also, throughout this workshop, if you have questions or comments, please add it to the chat. We'll try to see if there's a theme or a thread about the topics that are being posted, and we'll try and respond to those. And we might be able to not respond to each one individually, but it might give us an idea of what we do in the future for future workshops. Hopefully many of you have been able to get on and review our website. Really excited to be able to work with so many schools around the world in providing the services that we have established at Array Global. The one that we're really excited about is accreditation. So if your school is a K-12 school, primary school, high school, international school, a national school, maybe a post-secondary, vocational or career school, or a distance-based program, please contact us. We would love to be working with you. This year, as we recognize that there's a pandemic, finances can be a little bit tight, we are giving a discount of $500 for the annual fees. So the annual fees are only $2,000. We'll work with you. We even have means and mechanisms to run provisional accreditation visits virtually. So we want to work with you and be flexible in providing those different services. We're also really excited about our certification process. We will certify schools that are STEAM or STEM programs, or if you have a specialized program, like a special education program that you want certified, we can certify that. And with that, we can actually help you if you want to be established as a STEAM or STEM school and you just don't know how to do it. We can do that through our consulting services. And Bob and Laurie, Dr. Bob and Dr. Laurie, they're both some of our consultants, and they can help us along with all our other consultants too, in helping you in any phase that your school may be in, or any issues that you are working with. We can help with administration, curriculum, instruction, facilities. So please check that out. We offer professional development, not just here on these virtual workshops, but we also have a partnership with Epicenter, who provides workshops virtually, face-to-face. You can go through a teacher certification process, and we'd love to work with you on that. We also have a professional educators association, so you can get together in your professional learning communities, talk about issues, talk about solutions, and see what you can do to become a better educator. A lot of you asked about our awards recognition program. We have a teacher of the year, principal of the year. We want to showcase institutions every single month because we know that we learn from each other. And so when we show off some of the good things that are going on in other schools around the world, the countries, will be able to see that and maybe try and implement that. I will hold off talking about distance-based education because Dr. Ray is going to introduce Mr. George, and he's going to be talking about that in a little bit. I talked about academic Olympiads. External assessments is the last one I wanted to talk about. We've partnered with a company called Tree Test, an outstanding company that provides some excellent external assessment programs. So you can track and measure your students, help them in any level that they're at. You can provide some kind of differentiation, some kind of intervention to help them all be successful. So again, please contact us if you do have any questions about this. We'd love to get on a Zoom meeting with you, your school, your administration, your owners. It doesn't matter. We will work with you, again, at any level and help you throughout that improvement process. Dr. Ray, back to you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Jake. So we'll get started today, and I'm really very, very pleased to introduce these two people to you. They have been on many, many, many visits with us. They have done workshops, and every time, either one of them, when they have led a team, we have received such outstanding comments about their knowledge their leadership skills, and their attitude of wanting to help, because that's what it's all about. We will go into a school, we want to say, how can we help you? And I think Dr. Bob and Dr. Laurie are tremendous examples of that whole concept. So I'm so pleased to introduce to you Dr. Bob and Dr. Laurie. Each will give you somewhat of a little rundown. I will just say this, that Dr. Bob currently is the head of he's vice president. I have to look at his title because it's a long one, but he's vice president for community outreach for the Idaho Business for Education Council. And he literally works with all schools, all leaders across his state. And that is his current position. And Dr. Bob, if I butchered that title, forgive me, and if you need to correct it. Dr. Laurie is actually the dean of the School of Education at her university. She is in charge of the whole program in education. And just because I've known her for so long, I can tell you she is an outstanding example of leadership. So I'm so happy to introduce Dr. Bob Sanchez, Dr. Laurie Sanchez. And so it's you guys, and probably Jake and I will just interrupt you with questions once in a while. We tend to forget that we're not doing the presentation, but you are. But hopefully it will be to help clear up some things. So Dr. Bob, I think you were going to speak first.
Well, thank you, Dr. Ray. I appreciate the introduction. It's a privilege and an honor to be here. And first, I just want to say greetings to the 2,000 workshop participants representing 27 different countries. You know, as we reflect on what we're about today, it's about sharing knowledge and experience in a way that will have a positive impact on students and student success. So it's an exciting opportunity to be able to not just present to you, but to take your questions and exchange our thoughts and ideas. When we look at where we are at this time in history, it's such a pivotal moment as we are about 6 months into this pandemic. In my position, I work with over 700 schools, 14,000 teachers, 300,000 students. And in the last several months, we've had an opportunity to look back at the spring and ask ourselves the questions: what did we do well? What can we do better? And how can we set the conditions for success for this upcoming school year? And so here's some common things that I just want to emphasize right at the beginning. There's not a playbook that's written for any of us. We're writing this playbook as we go. And there's not a one-size-fits-all approach to anything here, because schools are so unique, and their composition and their makeup is so unique that it takes customized, individualized approaches. And last but not least, this is such a leadership-intensive effort that we're leaders. Each of us are leaders at all levels and have a duty and responsibility as we help to lead our students, to lead our schools, and to lead our communities through this pandemic. So again, it's a privilege and honor to be here. I'm going to pause just for a moment, and I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Laurie Sanchez.
Hello. It's my privilege to be with you all. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you and just give you a little insight as to what we're doing, and hopefully it's helpful for you all as well. Just to echo a little bit of what Bob said, this pandemic has really changed everything that we're doing. But I try to think of the opportunities that it also gives us. It gives us this opportunity now to rethink what we're doing, to change what we're doing, and to focus on our students again, and to say, what can we be doing better? Okay, so this is an opportunity.
Great. So we'll start. And first of all, you both addressed it, and I would like to just delve into a little bit more this whole idea of the pandemic and what it is. And I think how about if we begin with this? how can we, we're used to our curriculum. We're used to going in and we have these number of students, we have these assignments, we have these exams, we have this lesson today where we're going to read this and we're going to read that. And all of a sudden, that's all mixed up. How can we continue to offer the same planned curriculum when we're coming about it in so many different ways than we're used to?
So I'll start on that. We need to remember that we always start with the educational goals, right? The student learning outcomes. What is it that we want our students to know? So if our plan that we had is not going to work, right? We're not all together, and so we're not able to do that, then we need to think of new ways that we're going to help the students attain that same learning. So what they need to know hasn't changed, but how we're going to help them attain that information is what's changed. So we as teachers and as parents and as tutors and as community members, we will change what we do in order to facilitate that learning. So it's not that all the curriculum is not useful now. We just have to figure out how we're going to use it in a different way. And we can go into some details on that as you wish.
So I heard you say, Laurie, the goal is always there. Are you talking about a curricular goal or are you talking about a different kind of goal?
I'm talking about like the end of grade goals that we have, the knowledge that they have to have in order to progress to the next level. Whatever goals the school has for their students, right? That's what it is that we're addressing. We need to look at it from a student-centered perspective rather than a teacher-centered perspective. And I know various schools and various teachers are on different levels along the perspective on that. But the teacher no longer can be the sage on the stage now, right? We need to focus on the students and how is each student best able to learn given their unique circumstances. Maybe they don't have internet in their house. Maybe they don't have a computer in their house. Maybe they don't have someone there that can help them. Those are the details that we need to know as we figure out how we're going to address the learning needs of each student.
So I'm going to pass it to Bob. Same question, but asked a little bit differently, Bob. For those of you who don't know, Dr. Bob was at the very highest level he could be in the U.S. Army. He was I think the major general or whatever. And so he's used to, you're used to very, very cut and dry. Here you do this, 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 and if you don't do that, you salute at the right time. So how do we deal with that whole idea of the way in which you're operating in the military, and now we're all of a sudden we're saying, oh, well, maybe you could do it this way, and maybe, what are some suggestions you have, Bob, for how we transition from we all do it this way to we're all going to do it, but we're going to do it in different ways, maybe?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. And so I'm kind of reflect back on the conference participants from the 27 different countries. I think what we have in common, this common purpose, where we're focused on students, but in addition to that, I think our common purpose is also the safety and security of our students, our staff, and our learning communities. And toward that end, we're in this period of a lot of uncertainty about what this pandemic is and in which direction that it's moving. And that's causing us to have a lot of anxiety about what the future might hold. One of the things that I think I would ask our conference participants to consider is the principle of flexibility and adaptiveness. And that is having an approach to what they do each and every day with this understanding that things are going to change. In some cases, they'll change from week to week, but this pace of change that we see is everything that we know about this pandemic, and what the experts are telling us is that this rate of change, this pace of change is going to continue. So I just ask the conference participants to consider being flexible and adaptive to change, and not having a fixed mindset on a plan, but rather a growth mindset in a planning approach. Now, I think the second thing is in taking the yardstick out to measure the effectiveness of your plan. Because one of the definitions of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And so this is an opportunity for us in this pandemic to be creative and be innovative on a lot of our approaches, but also how we measure success. And so when we talk about measuring success, there are so many inputs to that we can get from parents, that we can get from students, that we can get from teachers, that we can get from our administrators, each that are important data points that are going to help us to gain clarity around what, around our plan. Is to what degree is it working? So I think being flexible and being adaptive is going to be absolutely paramount. Has all of us from these 27 different countries and all countries throughout the world move forward to set the conditions for success for our students.
I think that's a great point, Dr. Bob. My question is about flexibility. Do you have any ideas specifically on how schools and teachers can be flexible during this changing time?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Jake. And so I would ask our conference participants to consider taking an approach that's focused just on 1 week at a time, knowing that things are changing so rapidly that what is true this week may not be true next week. And here's an excellent example. And so many of us are right now ready to begin the new school year. A lot of us are going to be doing it fully online. Some of us are going to be doing it in a blended learning model where some of it will be online and some of it will be face-to-face. And so when we think about that flexibility, it's having a structure and a process in place to each week say, okay, if we're going to have to, if we're a school that is face-to-face right now mostly, but this pandemic is going in such a direction that it's going to drive us to have to close the school and go fully online. What are the steps that we need to be able to do that so we're proactive versus reactive? Because one of the things I think we all learned last spring when the pandemic hit is for some regard we were kind of in some regards we were kind of caught off guard, and we were in a reactive mode, and we were closing schools and we weren't ready to do a lot of things. I think we've learned a lot since then, and we can become, instead of reactive, we can be proactive. And in terms of flexibility, each week having a system and a process in place that helps us to ask ourselves, okay, is our plan working for this week? But if things change next week, are we going to be able to, do we have everything set, all the assets, resources, and pieces in place to be able to adjust our plan so that we're proactive?
So I think what I'm hearing from you both is I go back to the phrase that we use all the time, and if I've been in your school, you've probably heard me say this. It's called scope and sequence. And I heard both of you say, don't change what that scope is. What do you expect students to know at the end of this year, at the end of next year? And if we all know what the scope is, final, when they leave school, grade 12 probably, the sequence is so important. And do you have any ideas, either of you, on how schools can pay closer attention to the sequence at their grade level? Because as we all know, if we have 25 students in a classroom, we probably have 25 different places where they are. And how do schools really use that whole idea of scope and sequence with such a diverse population? You can't walk around and talk with students individually. How do we emphasize, at least at this point, the sequence level? What you do in grade 3, what you do in grade 4, etc.
Thank you, Dr. Ray. Another great question. I'll lead off with that first, addressing it from a leadership perspective. And that setting expectations and clearly communicating those expectations are so important. And so around the curriculum piece of it, it's not just important to our students so that they have a clear understanding of the expectations, but also the parents, and also obviously our precious asset and resources of teachers, and how we take the time to emphasize communication so there's a clear understanding of expectations this week, but also the expectation on curriculum if things change. If we're a face-to-face school and we have to change to fully online, or we have to change to that hybrid of that, that blended learning environment. So I think it begins there, but I'll defer to Dr. Laurie to add to the rest of that.
So, thank you. So I always look at it from the student perspective and the teachers. So there's no getting around it. This is difficult. This is very difficult. Teachers' jobs are different than they have been, because of this pandemic. And it's their job to help these students get this knowledge according to the scope and sequence. So they're really having to be flexible and creative. They're having to think of different ways in which we're going to do this rather than how I've done it before. And again, this is an opportunity. So like when we think about young children, how do young children learn? They learn through play and through exploration and through games. And so how can we take what we need them to learn and make it motivational and engaging for them? Well, let's take it back to games and play, and let's bring the families into it. Role playing, drawing, telling stories, family involvement. This is an opportunity because they may be at home more than they ever are, that we can use these other areas for the students to learn, and then for them to demonstrate their knowledge in different ways other than whatever kind of formative or summative assessments that we're used to using in our classroom previously.
I think that's a good point, Dr. Laurie, especially using kind of the real world items that are around in each home. And then also really involving parents. And I think that's really key. And for some parents, it's probably very, very difficult to get them involved, especially with the upper grades. There have been a lot of questions about the lower grades. Do you have any suggestions or ideas on how to engage those little ones, the kindergarten students through maybe grade 3?
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to lead off with that one, Dr. Jake. And so it's important for us to always remember that we should take the time to communicate to our students how much we care about them and how much we think about them. And so during this period of pandemic, when sometimes we don't have the opportunity for face-to-face, and we're maybe in an online blended learning environment, there are tools that can be used to get to opportunity to communicate how much we care about and how much we're thinking about our students. Some of those tools might be using the web chat and having an opportunity to have set times when you're bringing students together, either around table groups or individually. But I'm going to pause there because I know Dr. Laurie has a lot of great resources that she wants to share with the group that's assembled today.
So young children, right? Is that what we're asking about? Young children. So I think I already mentioned role playing, drawing, telling stories, but when they can involve their family and when they can relate, and this applies for older children as well, but definitely with the younger children, when they can relate the subject or the knowledge or the topic to their real world experiences, that will help them attain the knowledge faster. So if you can take the topic that you're covering, whether it's something in math or something in science or something in social studies or animals, and if you can tie it to something at home for them, do you have this animal? Does anyone have this animal? Or if it's math, how many tiles are on the floor in your house? How many tiles are on the floor in the kitchen? If you can tie it to something that they can really experience, a lived experience, that will really help with the younger children.
And another thing that you bring up that's just giving them real life experiences. Another one that I've heard of that's been really effective is having students work in groups, because we talked about communication. you want to talk about that collaborative learning, that learning in groups? That kind of hits a lot of things where they can learn from it and then also connect, be part of a school culture.
Yeah, sure. So groups, collaboration, that's all a subset of communication, right? Which is so important to let us feel like we're part of a community, right? We don't want to lose that sense of being in a school community. But the collaboration is important. Sometimes we forget that we think of students reading in a textbook and that they're learning. But the best way for students to learn is through collaboration. Learning is relational, okay? They want that relationship with their teacher. They have that relationship with their parents and with their peers. We learn from each other. And so as long as we can keep the collaboration going, students are learning, and it helps us to sharpen our opinions, right? So a student can learn something, but then when they collaborate with others, they can hear the other viewpoints and perspectives, and they can refine their thinking. And it's kind of like high tide lifts all ships, right? As we're communicating together, collaborating on our learning, we are all learning more. And so how do we do that collaboration? Still, there's a gamut, right? It can be as basic as phone calls, or you can set up groups in Zoom meetings. You can do text chats. There's all kinds of ways that you can do collaboration. And I'll bring it up a little bit later, but we set up a little Google Classroom, which is a free tool that teachers can use. And there is free collaboration on that. So there's all kinds of ways to keep this collaboration going. And it's very important.
Yeah, I'm going to bounce back to something you said a while ago, Laurie, and that is helping the student feel important. And as teachers and educators, hopefully we have some sense of what the students' needs are. And some need more specialized attention, some need more instruction, more curriculum, or more of the academic issues that we're dealing with. And I heard you say something that I want to jump on, and that's sometimes maybe it's okay for the teacher to do a one-on-one telephone call with a student who you feel might be lagging. And the other thing that I heard you say that is kind of ringing around in my head is that how can we group these students together? Physically, yeah, that'd be great if we could do that. But what can we do to have students working together? And the third thing I want to reemphasize on what you said is that if they're involved in doing something other than listening to the teacher, somebody a little bit ago said something, how do we engage students for an hour? We don't. Let's give up. We don't do that. But if we have them doing something, some kind of activity which we can summarize, I'm just capsulizing what I think you said, Laurie.
Mm-hmm. Sure. So your students want to hear your voice. Okay, I'm talking to the teachers now. The students want to hear you. We need to have that personal connection. And whether you do that through like a pre-recorded video that then you can put in a Google Classroom and all your students can see that, on their phone or on their computer. And then they want that human connection. And then that also gives them an opportunity to, and there's Flipgrid, there's some tools in here in this Google Classroom that I set up that then they can do a quick video, and they can respond to what you've asked them to do. They can give a little speech, they can do a project, they can show and tell their information that they're putting together. Or there's opportunities for texting in there. There's also opportunities for them to meet in groups that you can assign. You can assign as the teacher based on ability level or based on locale, based on subject area, however the teacher wants to do it. It's just a matter of using these tools that many are free and available.
Now, Dr. Laurie, I really like those thoughts. And when we were talking about this, we're talking about best case scenario, when families have internet and they have parents available. And there's been a lot in the chat box about, well, what if the parents aren't able to really support their families? Or one comment was actually, what if the students are in a humanitarian camp and they don't have internet? And I know a lot of schools are having to do paper-based work too. Is there any thoughts or ideas on how we can best support those students and those families?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Jake. It's a great question, and it's a reality that is faced by many schools and many communities throughout the world. Our own experiences here in the United States are showing us that there are many students that don't have access to the internet or even have computers at home for remote learning. We've seen some very creative and innovative approaches to mitigate what we call the digital divide. And one way is creating homework packets and getting homework packets from the school over to the students. And so we've seen schools that have used school buses to transport these homework packets. And in essence, what it looks like is that the teacher then would create all these homework packets. They would put it on the bus. The bus driver would do the bus route, and then at each stop, the parents would be there and/or the student to pick up the homework packet. They would take it. They would take it home. They would complete the homework, and then the next morning, the bus would come to pick up the homework and then drop off the new packet. And so that's worked with a high degree of success. Again, it's not a one-size-fits-all approach, and so that's just one of many examples that I wanted to share as a best practice or lesson learned when we have students that don't have access to the internet or computers for remote learning.
Okay, I've heard you kind of refer to other options. I'd like to use this next few minutes. I'd like to introduce to you Mr. George Maklavadze. George is one of our partners in Array Global, and he is head of an organization called FEYDEY, F-E-Y-D-E-Y. You'll see it on our website. And obviously, and the other thing is George will be our host for our annual international conference next March, and we're encouraging you to consider that. We're trying to keep the cost down so that it will be very doable for most people. But George has a program, an LMS, Learning Management System. And let me just let George talk a little bit about that right now, because sometimes if we use something different than we're used to using, we're used to using this book, this lesson plan, this whatever, but here's an opportunity to engage in something else in a different way. So George, I see you there, and I don't know, Dr. Jake, do you have to unmute his microphone, or did you do that already?
It's unmuted, thank you.
Okay, good. So George, tell us a little bit about the LMS, maybe just very briefly how it was developed, and then what you do with this LMS.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Ray. Thank you, Dr. Jacob. First of all, I would like to say hello, all our participants from Switzerland. And definitely we will be honored to wait you and meet you and host you next March in Switzerland. If it will be possible to travel, we definitely will be all here. About LMS, Dr. Ray, first of all, I would like to take about 2, 3, 5 years ago when we very much already were developing the online education, distance learning, and LMS, which is Learning Management System. And the main idea was not pandemic. I, at that time, even didn't know that word at all. Originally, the idea was that we were developing the learning management system to improve education, learning process in schools and universities. So it was some kind of new technology, innovation. And today I heard several times, blended learning model, which originally was used that sometime offline, sometime online, but original blended learning model, it's when you have proper LMS, learning management system, that allow you during traditional classroom to use online content as well. And that extends also the time of the classes, because students and teachers can communicate as during the classes as outside of the classroom. And I do remember a few questions from the previous webinar when you mentioned what can be new challenge of the communication between stakeholders, right? Teachers, parents, students, school administration. And the proper LMS, and I will try to just quickly share this screen to also, while I'm saying, this is our design of the LMS. You can see there is a messages, there is announcement. So any school administration can be in touch with the schools, teachers, and parents anytime. Also, we create 25 reports every single second. That means that parents, teachers, students can track their success, because last webinar you also had question about the assessment. And we have to allow students to do self-assessment as well. Yes, life change. Not only teachers are giving the assessment today. So communication tools, proper LMS allow to be in touch with any stakeholder 24-hour and be informed how the students learn. Also, this will give us opportunity to improve students' self-study. They can design their learning paths themselves. Originally, the LMS was designed for several reasons. First of all, to allow school owners and administration to manage school. When you mentioned scope and sequences, Dr. Ray, this is exactly perfect solution, because during the physical classroom, when you have, I don't know, 10, 15, 20, 25 students in the classroom, we perfectly understand that teacher has not the opportunity that every single student can be asked during the lesson. In the using the LMS, it will allow teachers perfectly follow up each student's knowledge of each lesson. And also, it is very important that feedback from the teachers and students to each other, because the communication during the school, physical school, it's kind of more based on the opportunity time-wise. In this case, when you have LMS, teachers and students are 24-hour in communication, not online, they communicate with each other. And lastly, when you mentioned also about the curriculums, this is very correct what our colleagues said, Laurie, that we have to change the delivery methods. Curriculums will be not changed, outcomes will be not changed. And honestly, you will not change teachers as well. What we have to train teachers to give new pedagogy, modern pedagogy, which allow them to students to have more outcome from the learning process. And if we do it properly, because we know that already more than 10 years, we providing the learning management system for top schools in Switzerland, in UK, in USA. And I'm sure that we have today on the webinar professionals. They have their own solutions. They have all their visions. They have general understanding what they will be doing from September. But what they need, Dr. Ray, I think they need exact solutions. They need exact some kind of advice is how to train the teachers, how to make the lesson more easy, how to deliver the subject to the student, how to monitor and get the reports, which students has the gap. So originally, when you mentioned that we may, during the, while the kids are at home, we can some kind of responsibility to give the parents to be involved. Yes, it's very emotional, good way, but at the end of the day, we are the responsible of the education and the results. So we don't want to be in the position that then parents will tell us, we gave you kids and what is their level of the education. So having the LMS integrated in, which is not very expensive during the year, allow parents and school administration to avoid any misunderstanding of the students' progress while the students are not attending school, or even, as I mentioned to you, most top schools and universities using LMS during the physical attendance.
Great. And I want you to emphasize something, George, that you and I have discussed before. The LMS can be used in addition to or in place of, however the teacher wants to do it. So you can use it as just an added part of the instruction that teachers are doing, or in some cases where there's not a teacher available, it can be the whole curriculum. Is that correct?
Is that correct? It is correct, Dr. Ray, because the LMS were designed, we have from kindergarten to grade 12 designed every single course. So originally LMS designed for the self-learning, so students can get on the LMS and during the year recover the credit or learn themselves. But from another hand, many schools are using during the lessons. So the LMS can be used as offline during the lessons, so teachers can have the blended learning lessons, or it can be during the distance learning independently. And it can be used as the main content because it's a K-12 content, Common Core Standard, or it can be as an additional supplementary material when the teacher is using during the classroom, or as an additional test or lesson post-test or the kind of Olympiads or testing the students.
Great. And for those of you who are interested in looking more at the LMS, check our website under FADE, and there will be more information, and I believe that it will be helpful to you. Moving back to Dr. Bob and Dr. Laurie at this point, there have been several questions, not only today, but in every conference we've done, and they center around two things kind of. How do we get parents to do the things that we're doing? Another one is with a parent who has children in 2 or 3 or 4 grades, all different lessons may be. How can we deliver the curriculum in such a way that it's going to be accessible and span many different learning levels?
That's a great question. So I'll lead off with this one. And I'm going to, again, approach this from a leadership perspective in our outreach to parents. Our common bond is that we have the best interest and welfare of the student as our top priority. Along with that is their success as a student. And that relationship between the school, whether it's the teacher, the parent, is such a critical link. I think it begins with leaders being either administrators or teachers taking the time to communicate to parents in a way that develops trust and builds upon that trust so that it's a strong relationship and a bond that is centered on our student. And there's so many different ways that a parent can partner with the school. One of the most important ways is to communicate and give feedback to the school, because there's such a diversity of needs, and the school needs to have an understanding and appreciation. So when I say school, I'm talking about the teachers and administrators, taking time to listen to our parents and learn from our parents before we lead our organization, our students through this period of uncertainty. So there's so much that we can learn just by listening to our parents and asking them for their specific needs. And that, I think we follow that up with, here are all the different ways that we can help meet that needs. Some schools have limited capacity or capabilities to meet a need, but communities have great capacity. Communities might have libraries. Communities might have other organizations that can help to meet the needs of our families and parents. So I think it first begins with listening to our parents, learning from our parents, and then leading. And so I'll pause there and then turn over here to Dr. Laurie.
I would just say that I agree. Parents are a very valuable resource in a student's life. And if a parent decides that it's not their job to help their students' learning, that really is going to put that student at a disadvantage, especially now, because everything is being changed. I have faculty in my university that have young children, right, in school, and those schools have gone online. So they have communicated with me how difficult it is to be the parent, to help their young children through their learning, and then also do their own job as they're teaching future teachers. So it's really cyclical, but it takes a village. I don't know if that phrase comes across the same, but in America we have the phrase, it takes a village to raise a child, meaning it's not just one person's job with this learning now. We really need to involve the parents more than ever. And I think parents should be involved in their children's learning. So this is a great opportunity, an opportunity for schools and parents to be partners and to establish a good relationship. And as Dr. Bob said, to listen and learn from each other. What do you need? What do I need? How can we together as a team help the students?
And
You know,
because we've talked a lot about students, we've talked a lot about parents. I want to talk a little bit about teachers now. There's a lot of administrators on the conference today. And maybe this could be for Dr. Bob. How can we as administrators best support our teachers and help them getting the training that they need, getting the support that they need from day to day? Any thoughts or ideas on that?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Jake. Just as I said earlier about how important it is for us to communicate to our students how much we care about them and how much we think about them, that's equally, if not more important with our teachers, to create the space to maximize the opportunities to communicate to them how much we care about them and how much we think about them. Now, part of that is, as I mentioned earlier, listening and learning from them. Listening to each one of them on the challenges that they're encountering. What assets and resources do they need? What concerns do they have personally about the pandemic? Their own physical health, or the health of their students, or the health of the learning community. Learning from them, and then building upon that to provide the assets and resources that they need. All that kind of within that framework of having patience and empathy, in that, we are asking so much of our teachers. We've always asked so much of our teachers that the last thing we want to do is give them more and more to do without giving them the assets and resources, the professional and development. So I'm speaking to administrators right now from the heart. Take the time to communicate how much you care to your teachers, how much you think about them. Listen to them, what they have to say, learn from them, and then remind them that it will be an opportunity to, as we get them the assets and resources that they need, to all of us to work together so that we're setting the conditions for success for the students, that we're putting the students at the center of this, while at the same time not compromising the health and safety and welfare of anyone in our learning community.
Yeah, one thing that just is so obvious in what you're saying. We earlier talked about making the student feel important, but now you've entered into two other areas. We need to make the parents feel important. We need to make them know we appreciate, and where we can, we need to give them help on how to do these things. And then I just heard Bob, you talking about making the teachers feel important, because as we said, these are difficult times and we don't get together like we used to. We don't have these times when we can support each other. So especially important now is to have the administrators make the teachers feel their importance in this whole issue. So we've got parents, students, and teachers all, and hey, we're all administrators here. I think administrators need to be appreciated also. But frankly, we ought to be creating this whole idea of support for these other groups.
Yes. So administrators, please ask your teachers what do they need. Survey your teachers, and maybe you can take the most frequently requested thing or topic. Just take one thing and see if you can address that and help them. Give them some training on one thing, and then depending on how fast or slow your educational community goes, maybe you can take one new thing a week. Maybe you can take one new thing a month. But just address the concerns that your teachers have and help them figure out how they're going to do this. And I think that you will reap the rewards from that, I think.
Dr. Laurie, Dr. Bob, I think you wanted to share some other good tools specifically from Google Classroom. Is that something you want to do right now? And
well, sure. I'll share my screen, and I just set up a quick Google Classroom just as a way to organize. Here we go. This one, 3. Okay, so we'll see if this is coming on now. Do you see it?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. So this is just a Google Classroom, and this is the code. If students want to, if workshop participants want to enter there, that's the code. And I will send this to Dr. Jacob and Dr. Ray, and they will have this and be able to add it to the transcript and the notes from this. So I just use this, which is free, as a way to organize some resources for you. You can put different things. So this link is a Flipgrid, and Flipgrid is also a free tool. And so authentic learning experiences, we have some great opportunities right now for students to have authentic learning experiences, right? Take the concepts and learn from them. I implanted a video. You can put a video of you. I just pulled one off the internet and put it in there. And then there's a place for students then can do a quick video on phone or however they want to address whatever question you would like to put in here. So that's just one assignment. I also put in here resources for teachers. These are some resources for younger children, teachers of younger children. I put in here the Idaho online teaching standards and more resources and how those align to the different standards in Idaho, so they can click through those and see those. So we talked a little bit about levels of engagement, right? So, well, what does that mean? There are different levels of engagement, and this graphic organizer kind of shows you. Oh, I'm getting lines all over my. I'm getting lines all over my thing, but this shows you levels of engagement, what we don't want, what we do want, and how to encourage that. So I don't know why this is drawing all over this, but yeah, so these are just some different resources.
Great.
Sharing.
Let me, I'm sorry?
I'm looking for the stop sharing button.
Oh, so these resources will be available for the workshop participants. We'll put them on the reaction to the web page and so forth. I think our hour this has gone by very fast. It seems like we've been online 10 minutes, and here it's an hour already. Dr. Bob and Dr. Laurie, are there some concluding inspirational ideas or thoughts that you would like to give to the workshop participants?
Okay, so I'll start. I just want to say, you can do this. Okay, we all can do this. It's gonna take work, but if we don't do this, there's no one else. So take care of your students, take care of your teachers, listen to your parents, and I think through communication and collaboration, opening those lines, we're going to be able to do this, and we're gonna have students that are successful. It's up to all of us.
You know, at 1 hour, Doctor is absolutely right. 1 hour just came and gone like that. And this is such an important topic. You know, in some regards, I feel like we just scratched the surface. What I would encourage each of the conference participants to do is reach back out to Dr. Jake and Dr. Ray if you want to learn more about the planning and preparation of how to deliver all the different ways to deliver curriculum during this pandemic. We want to discuss in greater detail about, from an administrator and a principal perspective, how to structure the team and organize the team around delivering curriculum during COVID-19, how to do student engagement, how to engage with parents. All those things, I encourage you to reach out to Dr. Ray and Dr. J, because there are so many assets and resources, so many capabilities that Array Consulting, Array Global Education Services can bring to bear to your school. And last but not least, I just want to say to each one of you, you're heroes each and every day to a young boy, to a young girl, to a young man, and a young woman, and you can never underestimate the amount of impact that you're going to have on a person's life, whether it's some random act of kindness and much more deliberate. You have the opportunity to make a tremendous positive impact on the lives of students each and every day. So thank you very much, and bless each one of you.
Dr. Ray, can I just make one comment? I've posted in the chat box the survey, the post-workshop survey that must be done in order to get your attendance taken. So please make sure that you do that. And I personally just want to thank Dr. Bob, Dr. Laurie. I mean, I myself am very, very inspired and looking forward to a great school year with my schools that I run. And just want to thank you for your great words of wisdom, and your inspiration.
Thank you, Dr. Jake.
Thank you for having us.
And thank you, Dr. Bob, Dr. Laurie. Thank you, George. I hope you all look at the FADE LMS system on our website. It might be just something extra that will really help you. Let me finish it. I always have to finish it with something that is a bit inspirational to me. And I think I've used it before, but I want to say one of my favorite verses is this: we never know how high we are till we are asked to rise. And then if we are true to form, our statures touch the skies. You all must have a very, very high stature. Just think back in your educational days of those teachers who really inspired you. Most of you will point to one person or two people or something that really inspired. So you don't know how important you are until you're asked to be that way. And then the students are going to say, wow, my teacher really, really helped me. So thank you all for attending today. Just remember, you don't know how good you are until you're asked to be good. And then you're wonderful. So thank you, everybody. This is recorded. You can go on Facebook and watch it again. We have many people who are not registered in the workshop who are watching this live on Facebook, and we thank you for that. And wonderful, wonderful wishes to you as you begin these typical, untypical days with the students. But bless you, and thank you for coming today.
Thank you.